All right, teammates. We are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the number one show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more and more and more. No, we do new episodes every single day. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. To my regular listeners, you already know what goes down when you hit the play button on the show, the challenge, the obstacle, whatever roadblock may be in your way or you may feel like is in your way. We are here to indirectly tell you you are not going through it alone. Today, we are in for another treat because we have another franchise expert. You guys know me, you know how much I've dived into the franchise world, the amount of different fitness franchises in particular that I've been a part of. And here we have someone who calls himself a franchise coach, and he's going to really speak to us about what it needs to be done when you're talking about building your business, building a franchise. If you're good enough to be in the franchise, all the ins and outs about a franchisee, franchisor, and all that good stuff. Adam Goldman, welcome to the show, man.
As one, great to be here. Thank you so much.
Yes. Now you started off actually, I believe you said you were like a successful franchisee, right? And you
Yep.
like I'd love for us to like just go back before that though. Like, talk to us a little bit about your school years because one of the things that I have learned is that, when it comes to business and franchising and all that, this is stuff that you have to kind of learn when you're out in the field. It's not something that gets touched on in school at all. So kind of speak to us a little bit about, your school experience and then we'll go into the stuff.
That sounds great. So I think the most relevant school experience was I got my MBA at Haas School at Berkeley.
Mm,
And that was a great experience, right? Wonderful. Great classmates, great professors,
right.
but it wasn't like a real world school of knocks. I remember during my internship,
Wow.
I was at Silicon Valley and I thought something weird was going on. It turns out the company got bought in the middle of my summer internship between first and second year.
Wow.
So literally, like they forgot about me on the second floor, the intern on the second floor, right? So
Wow.
what was exciting about actually owning an office cleaning master franchise is that you just felt like you were learning by doing, and it was awesome. It was your own money. You get to tweak different things. I mean, my kids love Montessori schools, and I almost think of franchising as being a Montessori school for people.
Wow. All right. So when you say because that's a pretty heavy statement though. When you say you got your master's in business administration and there were still things that you felt like they didn't teach or they didn't learn, can you kind of go in a little bit about, what your experience was like there?
Well, it's really interesting because as a school, as a grade, we actually voted and we said, "Hey, we want you to actually teach sales at Berkeley, right at
So
Haas." So we had this.
the teachers asked you guys what you wanted to learn and
Yeah, we gave some sort of survey, and in the survey, the couple hundred of us were like, "Hey, please
wow.
add a sales class," right?
Oh, snap. Okay, there we go. All right.
Yeah. So, but the point is that this class that they gave us, right, didn't really, and I've been in sales and marketing and
Yeah.
business development for a very, very long time. It was talking about the not practical applications, but kind of like the academic thought of selling, et cetera. So just,
Hmm?
I mean, so what I mean by that is specific things like even from day one, oh my gosh, I'm starting this business and I have this really, really good mentor from the head office and
Hmm.
figuring things out. But just even little things like, okay, how do I do payroll?
Hmm.
Or am I going to go, how do I go ahead and hire? What's the best hiring things? I mean, MBAs can be great for networking and things of that sort, but like really learning how to deep dive into business, that's not what it's for.
Wow, yeah, that's something I think is very important for listeners to know and people to know as well, because there's a lot of a trust that goes into just going and get your MBA just to say that you have it. I think it's really important that you really have it figured out what you want to do and ask yourself, is it going to be the best option for you? So, you leave your MBA, you get your MBA, and then did you immediately start with the office cleaning and walk us through that journey of how, again, you said the company got sold, now you're an intern, you're like, okay, shit, I gotta figure out something to do.
Exactly. So when I was in Berkeley, right, I had a running business, an IT company that was in Eastern Europe. That was a business that I had when I was there at school. And then so I sold that business after I graduated. And so for a few years, just kind of figuring out what's next, right? I was really blessed in order to be involved in real estate after 2008, not before, right? The Great Recession. And I'm aging myself right now. That was 16 years ago, but there were really good deals to be had in real estate. And I
It
still own
was like
some.
oh 08, was oh 07 time.
Yeah, 0807, just kind of the whole financial crisis, right?
Right.
Had built a portfolio of bank-owned houses that I purchased at the right price and still
Wow.
owner
Okay.
finance them.
Okay.
But what I found was it was just hard as one to kind of find these deals after 2008 came along. So that's when I looked into franchising, just kind of stumbled by mistake in 2010.
Right. So as you stumbled on it, what were the things that you initially learned? Because one of the things for me, and I kind of give you my story, because this was actually around the time I was a sophomore in college, and I was working at a gym that was named Washington Sports Club. However, the parent company was Town Sports International, and they had Washington Sports Club, Pennsylvania Sports Club, New York Sports Club, and New York Sports Clubs, and they were kind of the franchises underneath it. But Town Sports International was the parent company that had a bunch of them, and now that gym is no longer in business because in the fitness franchise, you have these $10 a month gyms that popped up. You had certain things that happened, and I had learned back, especially during that time, hey, there's different ways, different business models that serve certain people. So, what was that experience like for you when you initially said, okay, there's certain ways I can get control of, hey, how I go about doing my business, and I can, I can use this franchising thing to my benefit.
So my initial thought was when I started investigating it, I'm like, wow, this is just, I thought that it was actually McDonald's and flipping burgers, owner operator full time,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So the consultant gave me a few different options, and I really gravitated towards office cleaning because I'm the kind of person, I'm not great at creating process from scratch, but I'm really good at following it.
Hmm.
And just thinking about this, like, wow, this is amazing. This is a business I didn't even think about, but it really
Yeah.
plays to my strengths. I really wanted to grow a business from scratch and to find different franchisees to clean these buildings and to find these accounts. It like
Oh,
was a
nice.
really, really good cultural fit as well.
Yes, that's how I'm so glad that you brought that up too, because we had a previous guest. He shout out to Edan, and he runs a franchise called 911 Restoration. And he started by just simply cleaning carpets. And then he realized that cleaning carpets can lead to, fixing moss or cleaning out the moss and then fixing out the roofs. And now he's been able to grow into different store, not different stores, but different trucks and, be able to buy the equipment and stuff like that. So as you're getting these accounts, what were the sort of the force multipliers and the things that you were seeing as you're getting these accounts? Maybe this office needs this, and then this office needs that, and then figure out how to really expand upon that.
So one of the things that was fascinating about our business is that there was so much money to be made by two ancillary services. And I'll put them in like just not in any particular order. Number one was selling supplies, right? I mean, customers were so lazy that they just want us to take care of it, right? So things such as toilet paper or hand sanitizer, big margin business and a really, really good add-on business.
Yeah.
Second one, which was great, was just to find out different special services they might need, like buffing or anything like that, a special service, like special shampooing. These one-off services could be really, really lucrative, especially if they were big enough.
Oh my, I mean, as you're talking, you're taking me back to these days. Because again, I worked at an Orange Theory, and there were times, because I'm used to doing everything. There were times where I would end my shift and I would be cleaning up, but the coach would tell me, "Hey, the cleaning company comes in. Don't worry about it." And even at Washington Sports Club, they had our own specific type of shampoo. And you're so right. Like there's certain things I was seeing as I was like being the guy that's touring and doing the facility work, that these guys are coming in, whether it's buffing the floors, whether it's being the franchise that brings in the towels and it makes it, like I said, shampoo or buffers the floors. There's so many things that you can be doing the dirty work that lazy people just don't feel like doing. And that's where that really is where the opportunity lies, right? So as you're building this, when did it get to a point now where you started to say to yourself, okay, now let me be the kind of the middleman between a potential franchisee and a franchisor, and like actually become a coach and teach people how to buy into a franchise, what they need to be doing, what the ins and outs are, and all that good stuff?
So that's such a great question. So I did my business for 8.5 years, right? And I realized the reason why I sold it, by the way, is someone that owned the market next to me. They
Mhm.
just gave me an unsolicited offer, right? So I actually found after I love my business, I love the idea of growing it from scratch. After you're in this business 6, 7 years, though, it becomes more like an aircraft carrier, right? Where you're kind of out even if you get this great account, it's not necessarily going to affect your bottom line as much or affect how much revenue you're doing because you're already at a pretty high level. So it's less interesting to kind of run it than to build it from scratch, right? So
Exactly.
just just kind of found this time in my life where I just thought that it might be interesting to explore first part-time and then full-time this idea of coaching and matchmaking, which really plays to what I really enjoy doing, which is to kind of get to know people deeply and then to think really strategically and deeply about what's a good fit for them, like a
Right.
matchmaker.
Right. Now, the thing too, and I want to give, especially for the listeners, I want to give this some context. So you have 2008, and then 8 years go by. There's a huge influx, or like a huge push with social media. Facebook becomes a huge thing. LinkedIn is all Instagram, all these things become a huge things. And these are the ways a lot of people are now making money. And like people can look at their account and certain people can kind of create their own business through their account and stuff like that. How did the advancements of technology affect your business, if at all? How did all the ways in which we communicate now, how did all of that affect everything you were doing as you were growing, you sold it, and now you sort of become this matchmaker person?
So I would say, look, you're right. What's interesting about our business model is it originally was related to telemarketing, right? Where
Yeah.
literally you hire people locally
Mhm.
and you call people. And I mean, it's amazing as time went on, less and less people actually answer their phone, which was interesting from a telemarketing department.
Yeah.
And then I would also say just finding the talent of anyone that could actually speak on the phone was harder and harder to find. It got older and older because the young people don't even know how to speak on the phone anymore, right? So just the whole
I
idea of
learned that. I've learned
telesales.
that. Yeah, I've learned that the hard way. That was
So,
nowadays you got to go through texting and all that. But yeah, go ahead.
I mean, we're taking me back right here, but I mean, like, just there's so many different avenues of getting things done in the office cleaning business, but probably one of the most effective ways is just kind of literally canvassing a whole neighborhood
Hmm.
of office cleaning buildings that are in the right place and just kind of knocking on doors. And look, it was hard to do that, but also just kind of going back and talking to people that you talked to 3 or 4 years ago, because once you give a proposal, it's pretty much never dead unless the building gets expanded or the building gets, even if it's a new tenant, you still have an active proposal.
Right. Actually, that actually leads me to another point I want to make sure you touch on a little bit is as people are coming into your franchise, they have to be there has to be some level of training. One of the things I actually remember was when I used to sell knives for Cutco, and they would teach me, hey, you can't just go door to door try to sell a knife here and there. You have to actually try to create corporate accounts and stuff like that. Were you training people to land the corporate deals, or were you in a situation where you were like, look, maybe go door to door? What was the training of the franchisees like?
So, great question. So, my franchisee's role was to clean the buildings, and
Yeah,
we would find the buildings for them, and
you
they
guys.
would buy them from us. Yes, that was part of our value proposition.
Nice. That is important too, and especially, and the reason I ask that is because a lot of franchisors really have to nail that down. That process, you really have to understand that process because when people come into your franchise, their skill set, again, I'm going to keep kind of going back to the fitness element, but there could be let's say a Gold's Gym where the person comes in and they're great trainers, but they're not really the people that are going to go and make calls and get sales and get people walking through the door. You may have to create some training or develop some sort of system in which allows them to do that. So that's very important as well. So when it comes to the coaching, though, I want to really dive into the coaching because I
Yes.
think this is very interesting and it's very important because I've seen my fair share of business owners, people that bought into franchises. I've seen them completely fold flat and fall flat on their face. What are the biggest issues that you've seen whenever there's a situation where there's a franchisor and a franchisee, they think it's a good deal, and you have said, no, look, this isn't going to work. What has your experience been when it comes to that?
So let's talk about positive things, right? The one
Well,
that
yeah, actually, that'll
the
probably be better to go there. So that way people
yeah,
know.
yeah. So let's talk about why things work out, right? And it's probably not what people would think. I mean, yes, you have to have these things such as culture
Yes.
and a good business, right? But if I look at these franchisees and look, many of my placements have succeeded, right? We call it the silver bullet, right? It's the kind of person that just literally almost like a hedgehog, right? They're going to do anything in their power to make sure this thing works. they're going to spend that extra hour on the weekends. I mean, I worked on Sundays when I started my franchise business. I didn't have any kids at the time. It was easier. That was kind of like my secret weapon. I was just going to work harder than anyone else. I was
Wow.
in my 30s when I started.
Wow.
So the question that I ask for people that have succeeded, and the answer I get is they have gone that extra mile as
Mhm.
one. They literally have been in a situation where they are best friends with the franchise coach that's in, or the consultant that's in from the franchisor.
Mhm.
They have made networking efforts with people inside of the system, with brothers and sisters in arms in different markets. They have gone that extra mile, whatever that is, to make things work.
Okay, now the people that are it's not for. Can you speak a little bit on that as well? Uh, because I think what I've learned with it, and I've heard this so many different times, is that when they buy into a franchise, I've heard a lot of people complain about what the franchisor is doing. And like I was telling you before we started recording, it was clearly because someone like you wasn't the middleman. And in their mind, they thought, hey, it was going to be like this, but I bought into it, but it's not like that. And what I've seen is a lot of them don't have the business acumen. They're not doing the work on their end. So they're just looking for somebody to blame. And I believe I was listening to you earlier. I believe you made a point about certain people have to have a certain business acumen. They have to have a certain professionalism about them, all that kind of stuff. So can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
So absolutely. So what I would say is this, that look, there are two extremes. You're probably
Mhm.
talking about these kind of people that buy into a franchise and they think, gee, this franchise brand is going to do everything for me.
Yeah.
They're going to go ahead, they're going to find the clients. I'm just going to be a silent investor. This isn't an index fund, right? Or a Vanguard
Mhm.
mutual fund.
Yeah.
I don't have to do anything at all. I wake up, the money comes to my mailbox,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
That's obviously not true. There's a second side of franchise brands, the people that say that the franchise brand is going to do nothing, right? They're just going to take my royalty fees and I got to do everything. That's not true at all. It's
Mhm.
somewhere in between, right?
Mhm.
Where you get that system and that process and that brand name,
Mhm.
and you still have to do work, but you kind of, it's the analogy is you're riding a bike with training wheels.
Mhm. Now, when it comes to the work you do, you work primarily, is it that you work primarily with the franchise or like do you get residuals from the franchise or and you go find franchisees for them? I'm just trying to figure out how were you able to kind of implement yourself as the middleman? Because it's not just your cleaning service. Now you work with, I remember you were telling, not telling me, but I was listening to you earlier. I remember you talking about there's another fitness franchise, like a boutique fitness franchise that you would work with, and they were very successful and all that. Like, how were you able to implement yourself as that go between?
So the way it works is it's just kind of a track record, right? So it's so from a franchise brand perspective, it makes a lot of sense to actually ask for me to give them leads. And the reason why is I do get a commission every time I make a successful match, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving them qualified leads as opposed to someone just coming off the internet, not sure how much money they have. There's a value for them and they're willing to pay me for a commission for every time that I give them a qualified candidate that decides to invest in their business.
Yes, and that leads me to also you have several books out, you have intellectual property out. Can you speak on those projects? What's in that? What made it so you came out with the books and how that helps people as well?
So look, I did write a couple books,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm most proud of my franchisee lifestyle book.
Mm-hmm.
I have it right here, and so this is a book that kind of talks through some case studies with people that have made franchising a great career choice. I think that the number one reason why people buy franchises as one
Mm-hmm.
is that they're looking for freedom, and I'm not talking about freedom as if I don't work at all, but freedom to work on their own terms, right?
Yes.
Meaning as opposed to working on Sunday if they want to, whatever that might be,
Mm-hmm.
and making sure they're there for their kids' little league game or whatever that might be as well.
Right.
So in this book, I just kind of have just different case studies and talking about a lifestyle that people have through franchising when it works out well.
Yeah, and that, man, I can't tell you how important that is as well, because as you had mentioned previously, and I definitely want you to expand upon this, is if it hits the right franchise and it's something that can affect your entire family. We could probably talk here for hours about situations in which, you see a father give his business to the son or a family member, two brothers, two sisters, they're able to work together, create a franchise or buy into a franchise, and they build a business for their family and it stays in their family for years and years to come.
Yeah, I mean, look, I can tell you that people they spend a lot of money in a house, right? If you're working a 9 to 5 job, you're probably only at your house after hours.
Mhm.
And I mean, I love making positive impacts in people's lives, whether that's a legacy
Yeah.
or just kind of, I mean, the people that I talk to, a lot of them are just very unhappy in corporate America. I think quiet quitting, maybe 80%
Hmm.
of people in the corporate world are just not happy with what they have, and I can make a fundamental change in their life and their family lives, and that's great.
Yeah. So what would you say is the vision you have to build the business? Like where do you see it going in the next, 10, 15 years? What's your overall goal?
So I would say this, that I see this role as being there's just so many people I can talk to.
Hmm.
Since the pandemic, it's been 3 times as busy as
Hmm.
before the pandemic. Just they got a taste of freedom and then they want even more of it.
Hmm.
So there's just kind of a limit to how many people I can talk to, right? So
Hmm.
the goal is for me to talk to as many people as possible in that limited amount, right?
Right.
That are really genuinely interested in franchise brands. Just kind of realizing those constraints and having a process myself in that the people that I'm talking to are really, really great prospects for this industry.
Mhm.
And being efficient on my end, whether or not, just to make sure that I'm giving them the service that they want, making that right match for them as well.
Right now, what would you say if there's anybody listening in is something that like some of the qualifications that you'd be looking for in people when they reach out to you?
So the most important thing, number one, is let's start out. You need to have at least $50,000 in cash
Mhm.
and $150,000 in net worth. That could be your house.
Mhm.
That's the minimum amount we're looking for, or it could be a 401k. The second thing is we talked about this before, and I don't mean to be so vague, but I have brands as one in 75 industries, right? So it's just kind of it can fit any budget or any profile, but they got to have some sort of business acumen. I have ones that are very operationally heavy. I have sales heavy as well. Sometimes somewhere in between if they're HR focused, but those are really the big components that I would say.
Yes, and that again, these are questions, and the reason I asked him that is because as a listener, you should be asking yourself these things. These are things that you really have to be honest with yourself and ask, do I have these certain things? And then reach out and then move forward because you don't want to be in a situation where you buy into these, and I've seen it happen over. You buy into this, and all of a sudden it becomes such a burden to you, and it becomes something that honestly you wish you never did. So all that being said, please tell people how they can get in touch with you, where they can go to reach out, where they can go to get the book and get more information.
Sure. So the best way to reach at me, and look, I'm offering free 15-minute chats. If I don't think you're a fit for franchising, I promise to let you know. It's at franchiseadam.com. Alternatively, if you want to find out information about me in general, just go to franchisecoach.net. You can also book a time to visit with me there as well.
All right, and all of that will be included in the show notes as well. So, Adam, the final thing I do to close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. You just finished your master's, you're going back to get your MBA. I want you to pretend that that version of you has come into the Zoom room. Give him some words of encouragement, and we'll officially close.
This is after I graduate, correct?
Yeah, after you graduate.
What I would say is be patient because you're not fitting this mold, right? I mean, all these other people are McKinsey, working for big tech.
Yeah.
Just kind of be true to yourself, right? Don't worry about it. Be kind to yourself, self-care, and you'll figure this out even though it's not a traditional path.
That's it. That's it. And the reason for you first time listeners, the reason I close out with that question is because if that's your situation specifically, as the promise of this show, we're here to indirectly tell you you're not going through whatever the challenge you may be having. You're not going through that alone. So, all that being said, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.
Thank you so much, as one.